Hi, Addy. Welcome to lesson number 56. This lesson is going to be really fun. You have 30 fractions to reduce, so that's not too bad. I know you like that one other than, compared to some of the other facts practice that you have to do. And then we're going to go over common denominators part 2. Okay, so you already started to learn it. We were sort of renaming one of the fractions. Now, in order to add or subtract these fractions, we're going to have to rename both of the fractions and find the least common multiple and then the least common denominator. So that's going to be super fun. That's what we're going to go over today. It's not too long of a lesson, so I think you're really going to enjoy it, okay? Have fun with it. Good luck. Bye. Alrighty, hi there, Addy. Welcome to lesson number 56. You should have already reduced your fractions by now, so good job doing that. And we're going to jump right into this lesson. This lesson is awesome. We are going to go over common denominators, which we already talked about, but this one is part 2. So it's going to be great, okay? Let's start out with this fun comic. This guy, I think this guy's the teacher, right? And he's saying, what is a fifth part of a foot? And he says, a toe. Right? Because I think he meant maybe like a foot, like 12 inches. And this guy was thinking like a foot. And he says a toe because we have 5 toes, right? So that's hilarious. Okay, let's go on to the rest of mental math, okay? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to count up and down by 25s between 25 and 300. All right, let's go for it. We're going to do 25, 50, 75, 100, 125, 150, 175, 200, 225, 250, 275, 300. All right, now we have to count down. It's going to be a little trickier. 300, 275, I almost messed up there. 250, 225, 200, 175, 150, 125, 100, 75, 50, 25, 0. I guess I should have stopped at 25 because it says between 25 and 300, but we went the extra mile. That's all right. Okay, let's jump into the rest of mental math. The first one, A, is 8 times 250. Write your answer. It's a little tricky. I gave you some beautiful nature pictures to look at while you do this. B is going to be 462 minus 350. C is going to be 150 plus 49. D is going to be $3.75 plus $4.50. E, what is 1/2 of 15? F, what is 30 times 40? G, this is the long one. We're going to start with the number 10 times 8. Then we're going to add 1. Divide by 9. Multiply by 3. Add 1. Divide by 4. Multiply by 6. Subtract 2. And then divide by 5. If you need to hear that again, just skip back, okay? While you're doing that, I'm going to go on to problem solving, which guess what? It looks like I skipped it. So let's take care of that right now. I'm going to make myself a little bit of room because I don't want to skip problem solving. Problem solving's fun. Okay, so I'm going to erase some of this and I'll write your problem solving for you. And it looks like it's going to be one of those where you fill in the missing digits. So you have this plus 2 digits here. So man, there's a lot of missing digits. This is going to be a little bit tricky. 0, 0, 0, and then a space. And I'm going to line this up a little better because it looks like, you know, I want the 10s to line up. I want the 1s to line up. So it looks like I'm going to have to add 6 plus what? Maybe it's a 4 or, you know, something that ends in 0. So it must be a 4. And then don't forget, you're going to have to carry a 1 here. Then you're going to have to add something again that makes a 0. or that makes a 10. Okay, so I think you can figure that out. And I'm going to go on to the new concept. There is cute little Grover right there. It looks like he's the professor in school. He's so cute. I love Grover. He's one of my favorite characters. So in this lesson, we're going to be renaming both fractions. So previously, what we had to do to add or subtract fractions is just rename one of the fractions. Now we're going to have to do it with both. Okay, so it definitely takes it to the next level. So in this lesson, we have to rename both fractions before we add or subtract. So to see why this is sometimes necessary, think about this problem. What if we have 1/2 plus 1/3? So if we think about that, you can't just add those fractions by just counting the number of parts because the parts are not the same size. And when the parts are not the same size, that basically means that the denominators are different. If these were the same size, their denominators would have to be the same, right? But with different denominators, that means this is not the same size as this. So it's really difficult to add it. So the way to add it is we're going to have to find a common denominator. So here we go. Renaming, the other thing to point out is that a lot of times what you did last time is you renamed something like 1/2 and you changed it to 2/4. But if you do that, look, it still doesn't help because you still have a 4 and a 3. So that still doesn't help, so we can't just do that. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to look closely at both of these denominators and then find the least common multiple of the denominators. So what is the least common multiple of 2 and 3? Okay, so the least common multiple of 2 and 3. Now, you remember the multiples of 2. Those are the numbers that you say when you count by twos. 2, 4, 6, 8, numbers like that. And do you remember the multiples of 3? These are the numbers you say when you count by threes. 3, 6, 9, 12. And then you look at those numbers and see if any of them are the same or in common. Well, there's a 2 here, but there's no 2 over here. There's a 4 here, but there's no 4 over here. And there's a 6 here and a 6 here. So the least common multiple between both of those is 6. So I'm going to put the answer to this question is 6. Okay? Now, let's look back up at the fractions, and what we need to do is rename both of them so that their denominator is 6. So, here we go. Let's do that. So what do we need to multiply 2 by in order to change it into 6? And I think you can see that you need to do times 3. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. That way, the fraction is the same as the number 1, 1 over 1. You're not changing the value. So then we multiply straight across. Now, we already did 2 times 3 is 6. So we're going to do 1 times 3 is 3. So 1/2 is the same as 3 over 6. Now, what about 1/3? We need to change that to something that has a denominator of 6. So what do we multiply 3 by in order to get 6? And I think you can see that you have to multiply that by something over 2. And of course, whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do it to the top. So that way the fraction is the same as multiplying by 1. So we're going to do 3 times 2 is 6, so we did that. And 1 times 2 is 2. So the fraction 1/3 is the same as 2 over 6. And now we've got two things that we can add. We're going to add 3/6, which is the same as 1/2, and we're going to add 2/6, which is the same as 1/3. And when you add those, oops, I should have written it down here, but that's okay. When you add those, you get 3/6. Well, let me do it here, I guess. 3/6, 2/6. And when you add them together, you're going to get 3/6 plus 2/6 is 5/6. And that's the answer. Because you just added the numerators. You added 3 and you added 2 and you kept the denominator the same. Remember, that's how we add fractions. Alrighty, now I'm going to erase this because we're going to do another problem that is similar. Okay. Let's see. No, I guess I don't need to erase that. We're just going to jump into example 1. So example 1 says to add these two numbers. We're going to add 1/2 plus 1/3. And this cute little puppy, I think he's a husky maybe? What do you think? Anyway, we're going to add them together and see what we get. All right, so this is what I want you to think to yourself when you see these problems. The denominators, so read down here with me, the denominators are 2 and 3. Now we're going to have to find the least common multiple. The least common multiple of 2 and 3 is something. Now, let's name the multiples of 2. Okay, the multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. What are the multiples of 3? These are the numbers you say when you count by threes. 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay, did we find one yet that is the same? So let's look. 2 is not the same because it's not on the other side. 4 is not the same because it's not on the other side, but 6 is. So that is the least common multiple. So when I go back to these words, I'm going to say the least common multiple of 2 and 3 is 6. That means the least common denominator is going to be 6. Okay, so then now I know what the new denominator is going to be. So I have to take this problem, 1/2 and plus 1/3, and change it into something I can actually add that has a denominator of 6. So let's look at the top one, 1/2 first. What do I need to multiply it by in order for 2 to turn into 6? And I think you can see I need to multiply 2 times 3 is 6. Of course, whatever you do to the bottom, you got to do to the top. So I'm going to put a 3 on top. That way, this is just a big fat 1, right? And then I multiply straight across. So 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. And what we're doing on this part of the problem is we are rename, and we're going to do it to both fractions, 1/2 and 1/3. All right, so now let's just look down here at the 1/3. I want the new denominator to be the same, so I want the new denominator to be 6, okay? So what do I need to multiply it by to get 6? And I think you can see I need to multiply by 2. 3 times 2 is going to be 6. I do the same thing to the top because I want it to be multiplied by a big fat 1. And then I can do 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2. So what I'm really adding when I add together 1/2 and 1/3 is the same as adding together 3/6 and 2/6. And now I can actually add those because they have a common denominator. So once I get to this point, then I can add. So 3/6 plus 2/6. If you add the numerators, we're going to add 3 plus 2, and we get 5. And the denominator stays the same, so it's 5/6. Easy peasy, right, Addy? All right, I think you've got it. Let's do example 2 just to be sure, okay? For example 2, they actually want us to subtract, so don't let that trick you. We're going to subtract 3/4 minus 2/3. And you've got a cute little corgi looking at you while you do this problem. He's so cute, huh? All right, let's subtract 3/4 minus 2/3. So what are we going to think to ourselves? We're going to think to ourselves, what is the new denominator going to be? So here we have a denominator of 4, and here we have a denominator of 3. What are the multiples of 4? So if I write down the multiples of 4s, I'm counting by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Let's stop there and see if we get one that matches, okay? What are the multiples of 3? We've got 3, 6, 9, 12. Oh, there it is. That's the one that matches. We've got a winner. We've got a 12 here and a 12 here. So the new denominator is going to be 12. I'm going to write that way over here so I have a chance to multiply. Okay, now that I found that, I'm going to subtract this so this doesn't get too confusing for us. So I need to turn 3/4 into something over 12. What do I need to multiply 4 by in order to get 12? And I think you can see I need to multiply it by 3. So it's going to be times something over 3. Now, I've got to do the same thing to the top and the bottom. That way I'm multiplying just by 1. And if I multiply straight across on the top, 3 times 3 is 9. So I've got a 9 here, and you can check this one. 4 times 3 is indeed 12. So that looks good. So that means 3/4 is actually the same as 9 over 12. Now let's rename the bottom one. I want to turn 2/3 into something over 12. So what do I need to multiply 3 by in order to get 12? Well, I think you can see I need to multiply it by 4, something over 4. And of course, we do the same thing to the top. So that's a big fat 1. Now, let's multiply. 2 times 4 is going to be 8. And now on the bottom, we're just going to make sure 3 times 4 is indeed 12. So this is actually 9/12 and 8/12. So what did we do in that process? I think you can see that that whole part was just to rename. We got to rename fractions before we add or subtract them. But now that I've renamed them, and they have the same denominator, we can just go down and add them. In this case, we're going to subtract. Okay, so we've got 9/12 minus 8/12. So let's subtract those numerators. 9 minus 8 is 1, and the denominator stays the same. So it's going to be 1 over 12. And that is our final answer. So renaming fractions, you have to do it before you add and subtract. But renaming fractions can also help you compare fractions. So when you've got two fractions like this and you have to decide which one's bigger, this one's easy to do because you've got a 4 and you've got a 5, and the denominator is the same. If the denominator is the same, then it's easy peasy. You don't even have to think about it very much. You just have to think, well, which numerator is bigger? Easy peasy, that one. So when you're comparing fractions that have the same denominator, it's easy. But what about this one? This is example 3. They want us to compare 3/8 and 1/2. That one's a little trickier because their denominator is not the same. So let's change it so that their denominators are the same. Now I've got an 8 and I've got a 2. And since 8 is actually a multiple of 2, I know that I can change this fraction into something over 8. So let's do that. So I'm right here. I've got 1/2. I want to change it into something over 8. Okay, that way they have the same denominator. So what do I need to multiply 2 by? 2 times what? So that it equals 8. And I think you can see I need to do 2 times 4 is 8. Now I do the same thing to the top and bottom. That way I'm just multiplying by a big fat 1. And then you've got 2 times 4 is 8 on the bottom. 1 times 4 is 4 on the top. So we know that 1/2 is the same as 4 over 8. Now when I look at this comparison again, what we're comparing is 3/8 and 4/8. And now you can see which one's bigger. Easy peasy. The 4/8 is bigger, or 1/2 is larger than 3/8. Okay, let's do example 4. For example 4, we're going to compare these two fractions. We've got a 2/3 here and we've got a 3/4 here. So again, they have different denominators, and in this situation, it looks like we're going to have to rename both fractions because one is not a multiple of the other. So let's find some multiples of 3. I'm going to just look at multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. What about multiples of 4? We've got 4, we've got 8, we've got 12. Aha! That one sounds familiar because it's the same as on the other side. So the least common multiple between both of those is going to be 12. That means the least common denominator between both of them is going to be 12. So we're going to change 2/3 into something over 12. So what do I need to multiply 3 by in order to get 12? I think you can see it. I need to multiply it by 4. Of course, we do the same thing to the top and to the bottom because that way we multiply it by a big fat 1. So we've got 3 times 4 is 12 on the bottom, and on the top we have 2 times 4 is 8. So the 2/3 becomes 8 over 12. I'm just going to sort of combine this into one big circle so you can see that that's what that is. Now let's do the other side. We've got 3/4 and we want to change it to something over 12. Now on the bottom, what do I need to multiply by to make 12? And the answer is going to be 4 times 3 is 12. Of course, we do the same thing to the top. That way we're multiplying just by a big fat 1. On the bottom, we have 4 times 3 is 12. On the top, we have 3 times 3, which is 9. So that's going to be 9 over 12. And that's the same as this 3/4. Okay, now if we're comparing those fractions, we've got 2/3, which is the same as 8/12, 3/4, which is the same as 9/12. Which one's bigger? The 9/12 is bigger because we are looking at things that have the same denominator, 8/12 and 9/12. Okay, so what that means is that 2/3 is smaller than 3/4. All right. I bet you're as happy as this corgi right now because this lesson is over for you. And now you can go on and do your homework, okay? Love you, Addy. Thanks for paying attention. Have a great day.